Welcome. This will be my thoughts on The Flash, Season 1, Episode 3, Things You Can't Outrun. The episode is rated TV PG, so this video there will be spoilers for the episode and the Arrowverse leading up to it, but not for anything later in the Arrowverse, or anything else for that matter, and another episode that I absolutely loved. I really appreciate how they continue to... we're only 3 episodes in, and they're 3 for 3. They're coming up with, like... These are enemies that Barry can't just, like, punch. It's not enough for him to, and that's one of the things I love about comic books. It's something you see rarely, or at least rarely, outside of comic book media and stuff that's heavily inspired by it. Outside of that, yeah, it tends to be, I don't know, punch, or shoot the thing, or blow it up, or something like that. But then you have, like, these wonderful comic book physics where he has to outrun poisonous gas so that the poisonous gas is forced to return to its humanoid form. Like, I'm sorry. That's wonderful. I love that. I am so here for it. And so the DVD says it has a deleted scene. I could not see a single thing in it that was not in the episode, so I don't know what happened there, but better safe than sorry, I guess. And it was also great seeing Anthony Carrigan again. I was very fond of his performance in the most recent Superman movie, so yeah, that was really, really great. Let's get into the episode itself. So, yeah, the opening with, this thing of like, oh, don't worry, no one will get in or out of here. And, guy breaks off, Mist breaks off the key. And, yeah, just the... I also really appreciate Anthony's ability to do a very striking evil villain face. Like, genuinely, really, like, I appreciate... So I don't want to, like, harp on it, because I understand that he has sometimes struggled to get work because of his very distinct appearance. But here, he really embraces it. And, yeah, it's really very, very compelling. Considering he doesn't die by the end of the episode, I don't know. I am hoping we'll see him again. I'll be okay if not, but that would be really cool. And I guess that does... But yeah, the guy in charge talking about, people disrespecting, and then he says they will draw their last breath, which... I love when comic book media does this. It's so corny, so on the nose. Like, he's literally saying what's happening to him without realizing that that's what he's doing. And, yeah, we see the attack covering all of them. And there, in the midst of the mist, a face. And, yeah, genuinely clever. Yeah, the, bulletproof, you should probably just stop shooting. You're never going to break that glass. And I guess that does cover... Yeah, and so the... I think the next thing was the... Was that the investigation starting, maybe? I think it might have been that the... Or was it... Oh, I think maybe the very next thing was Flash stopping the... that was also really cool. Yeah, this thing of, we have a, oh, right, and that's the... Isn't that when... Yeah, so they just got out of the theater, and I quite appreciate that he, like myself, has a special scale specifically for zombie movies. I've watched dozens of them myself, so yes. And the and he catches himself going full nerd. And, she gets a call from Eddie. And then, he gets a call, and I like how Cisco keeps getting the numbers wrong. And then Caitlin just cuts through and just gives a quick description of the scenario. And yeah, that's again one of those things where, how do you solve that without some kind of vigilante, and specifically superpowered is really, really beneficial. And yeah, he just puts them in the back, and then the cop is like, so we cut him off, got him into the back seat. Joe, I'll teach you how to drive. Wow. And I think that does bring them to the yeah. So we have the oh right, and that's also the part where so he manages to return. I was thinking like, well, she's gonna feel hurt that he just left without telling her. Like, okay, we get it. You're kind of jealous of the boyfriend, but he does get back just in time, and he's hungry, understandably. And she has a line about like, how are you eating so much and not getting fat? Well, I don't think she should know that he's the Flash, at least not yet, maybe later in the show. For now, let's settle on the explanation being that overweight people are right now, I'm hoping that will at some point change, but so far into the Arrowverse, fat people are or overweight people are the least represented minority. And I do appreciate that the other ones are represented, but yeah, it's and I appreciate it was really, this was not the only media property that back then really did not have a lot of, such, but, we gotta normalize, listen, not everybody is skinny in real life. And like just recently, let's see, it was the, that actually functions well as the recommendation for YouTube video. Otterly Noah did a stream called Analyzing and Debunking Race Swap Complaints, wherein they discuss, among other things, how, there were people, YouTube chuds and such, saying, okay, I do not remember what it's called, but the most recent of the movies, I think it's the most recent, the Seth Rogen Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. April is black in that, not realizing she was in the original comic. I mean, I'm not saying you have to know that, but if you're going to position yourself as an expert, maybe you want to know that. Like, it's not super difficult, but it's not like lost media or something. Like, you can find this online. And they were saying, she looks like she would get winded just opening the fridge or something along those lines. And it's like, have you literally never seen an overweight person in your life? She's not particularly heavy. She doesn't even look unhealthy. And I'm of the opinion that if someone isn't unhealthy in their weight, and keep in mind, being underweight is worse for your health than being overweight. You actually have to be very overweight, and being underweight will kill you faster and has a higher, there's a higher risk of it killing you. But if you're not at an unhealthy weight, then I don't think it's really anybody else's business what exactly your body shape is. But anyway, yeah, so they get the case, and yeah, that is genuinely such a cool concept. He was being gassed to death as the particle accelerator accident happened. And now he can turn himself into the gas that killed him. I'm here for it. And yeah, Joe pretty quickly accepts. I like the thing about how, Barry is like, oh, maybe this gas has a mind of its own. And, Joe is like, Barry, what did we talk about? Not in front of company. And you know, he sends out Eddie to canvas again, and then later Eddie's like, I need an excuse. We talked about canvassing earlier. Let's canvas a third time. I mean, Joe's not wrong when he says that both Eddie and Iris are just terrible liars. So that does mean that Joe was actually agreeing to that just to, like, punish Eddie for this whole thing. Yeah, that's fun. And I guess that does... But yeah, you know, Joe pretty quickly arrives at the conclusion they're going to need backup, and so they go, you know, to the lab, and I am now trying to learn, you know, so the doctor's name is Wells. You know, longtime friend and subscriber who actually requested the Arrowverse Arts Cafe, you know, pointed out his name is Dr. Wells, which I think I know how to remember because I can use as a mnemonic device. Now I feel like Peggy Bundy in that one episode with Kelly Bundy. Wow. Yeah, where, you know, you put in one new piece of information and another one gets pushed out. Anyway, you know, he is the deepest character on the show so far, whose name I didn't already remember. So, Wells. That should be easy enough. And yeah, I quite liked the three of them, you know, geeking out, and you know, Barry saying they get excited. And yeah, it's so great. I really appreciate that Kate, you know, it's the kind of character where you could easily have, oh, she's just like mopey and she's the buzzkill. She's, you know, mopey because of her fiance dying, and she's a buzzkill because she's the one who forces the boys to be serious and not just go off, you know. But no, she is really, really into this science, and she's excited about it too. She just wants them to not risk lives. That's all, you know. And I forget if I mentioned, I did recently look up, because I felt like I've seen Danielle Panabaker in something. I don't know how I forgot, but, well, it's because it's years ago. She did a bunch of like horror movies, like Friday the 13th, Piranha 3 Double D, The Crazies, and The Ward. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I remember watching those, you know, 15 years ago. So that's really cool. Even did videos on... Oh, did I do videos on all of them? Come to think of it, maybe I did. Yeah, back then. So maybe don't watch them, because my videos back then were not as good as the ones I make today, which is really saying something. But let's see. Yeah, and I think that brings us to the attack on, yeah, and they they had to go and humanize, you know, which, like, I do appreciate. Yeah, this is one of those cases where, yeah, she's, you know, she did want this judge did want, you know, this killer dead, but with her own daughter, she's like really, really loving, you know. And I'm not saying that she should be loving towards the killer, but I do really appreciate this contrast, you know, and them making sure we care. Like, I didn't know that she was like, because the moment that I started to overhear the conversation, I knew where it was going, except for the part about how she was actually part of his death. I wasn't sure why he was, you know, because she seems nothing like the people he killed at the start, you know. But yeah, that is genuinely clever. He kills the people he worked for, the judge, and the arresting officer. Let's see. I guess that does. And I also really appreciated, you know, he understands. This is a story that could so easily have been unraveled by someone who didn't think, you know, no, there is a limitation. If the other person is far enough away, have enough room to escape, that's it. You know, he can't really do anything about that. Like, I don't know, I guess he could physically run after them, but that wouldn't really, you know, so he is always trying to find times where they're in small closed rooms, and Joe doesn't really tick that box until he goes to Iron Heights. You know, he spends a lot of his time out in, you know, yeah, he's checking out crime scenes and such. And I guess that does. And you know, by the time Joe gets to the restaurant, I guess it is, the place where the killing in the first scene took place, you know, by then they've opened that door, so it wouldn't still work for Nimbus. So very clever. Also really appreciate the comic book naming convention, calling him Nimbus, because he can turn into a sort of cloud. And yeah, I did really appreciate him calling out, you know, she says, I haven't seen, you know, what was it? I haven't seen you since you died. And he points out, that's very passive language. You are acting like you are not part of the reason that I was killed. You know, which is something to note when you look at coverage of, off the top of my head, the genocide that the IDF are carrying out of Palestinians in Gaza. You know, somehow some people died and shots were fired, bombs exploded. You know, well, who died? Who fired those shots? Who dropped those bombs? Who was killed? It's also something to, you know, note when we hear descriptions of police brutality and ICE committing, you know, violent, well, I guess I can't even say crimes, because right now it's illegal for them to do that, which I don't know. I thought that was the tyranny that the right was always talking about. To be clear, I'm not saying that they should use their guns. I hope they don't. But I can't help but notice that this is the dictionary definition of tyranny. Now, I'm just saying, do you know what you would get if you looked up tyranny in the dictionary? Picture of ice? No, the definition of tyranny, which ice effing is. Now, the, what can I say? Dead Domain quoted that line recently, and I remember how much I love that line, that movie. Anyway, recently. I guess by now it's months ago. Anyway, the, yeah, I like that Barry, you know, he moves so fast that no one sees him, or it's still just the red streak, you know. That was also great, you know, Eddie thinking, oh, you know, the red streak, that doesn't make any sense, you know. It's, oh, not you too. And, which, no, I mean, this is not Bono or The Edge, or, anyway. That was silly, even for me. I guess that pretty much brings us to the part where, yeah, so yeah, Eddie was trying to surprise Iris, and then Joe is there rather than at the morgue, and he's, you know, looking at, he wants to help. That was also genuinely so sweet, which, according to IMDb trivia, you know, this episode helps solidify how Joe is really the heart of the show, which, yeah, and I liked him talking about, like, you know, so I think I've made it clear, even in this video, ACAB, but still, I do appreciate, you know, hypothetically, maybe there are good cops, you know, and if so, then certainly I do appreciate saying, you know, hey, being a cop doesn't mean saving everyone. Because even if no good cops exist, that is still something, like, it's crucial that we have realistic expectations, and you can apply it to other things, you know. No doctor can save absolutely everyone that they, you know, come across, and not even only if they are being treated in America, where, there's a laundry list of issues there. Did you see how Trump is saying that he's going to send, or he's saying it has already been sent, which is factually inaccurate, which I guess what I'm saying is Trump conveyed a piece of information, like obviously it's inaccurate. So I guess that image is AI, which, like, wow. Anyway, he's saying that America is sending a medical boat to Greenland, like it's a war zone or something. And it's like, I mean, I realize not everyone on the planet is Danish, but I kind of thought everyone who wanted to know knew that, like, I'm sorry, but if someone in Greenland needs more medical help than they can get in Greenland, we help because we're right there. Like, physically, there's a shorter distance between Denmark and America. I should not have to teach kindergarten geography to the man with an, nuclear codes. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, and Eddie trying to talk Iris into, and her being like, holding back a little bit, and we can understand why. And very, very sweet later when she goes to the police station and talks to him, and he thinks she's breaking up essentially, or just reiterating that she's not ready to tell him. And then PDA, which I appreciate that it can be awkward for other people. I do think it is really sweet personally. Obviously, don't do it if it's gonna, like, really upset someone, but if you know that it will, I mean. And that was also a pretty good kiss. I can appreciate a really yeah. Let's see. I remain really torn. Like, on the one hand, they're so sweet and happy together, but on the other, I do want Barry and Iris to also be, at least have a chance at a relationship. But I guess that does bring us to the what's the other thing? I guess that's when that's when they realize, there's two DNA samples in here, but we can't find a match. And then later they realize, well, the person's dead, and that means, because there's only so much space, like, you genuinely cannot keep the DNA profiles of every dead person who was, like, a criminal. Like, that's completely ridiculous. Think about how many people there are and how many are being born and added to, I'm not saying all of them. I mean, hopefully not all of them are added to, DNA profile lists. Although, I don't know. I feel like that might be where they're headed in America. Anyway, I think that does bring us to the yeah. I really appreciate this thing about, like, well, Barry can't kill every single metahuman that he comes across. I really appreciate that is already addressed. Like, to be clear, I mean, it's in the first one, he wasn't the one who fired the gun. He just stopped the god complex guy from carrying out the weather attack. And in the second one, he tried to save the guy, and the guy, suicided. But yeah, like, let's not have the hero kill every single metahuman that he comes across, especially if there's going to be a new one for every episode. Like, but yeah, so they talk about a makeshift prison, and Cisco points out, I think it was Cisco, this thing of, like, well, I mean, technically the particle accelerator, which I thought it worked really well to have these flashbacks. Both Kate and Cisco think back to that day, and I mean, so does Wells. Yeah, I think that pretty much brings us to the yeah, and I really appreciated her like forgiving Cisco and the talk about how he was a hero, and yeah, the part where you know she does talk a little bit about him and her fiance, and you know the little smile she gets when reminiscing him was really great. It's once again, I do not need female characters to smile. I'm not one of those guys, but in fact, I really appreciate that here we have a female character, because it gives her room to grow. Like, we really want her to, we don't need her to smile every second, but we want her to get back to a place where she is happier, more, yeah. And yeah, it's a great little thing. I don't know if it was the actress or if it was in the script or the director chose it, but the little smile when she, I think it's when she says, he used to say that he was like, he something about like a plumber to this thing, and just the little smile, that is the smile of someone reminiscing on someone they love. That's because it's the kind of thing of like, that's a pretty corny thing to say, like if that's not being said by someone you already care about, you're probably going to be like, really? But, yeah, that's I think it was on Scrubs that they noted, the things that annoy you are the things you miss the most. And yeah, and it was good seeing the fiance briefly, and he also did a good job. And yeah, the three of them in the flashbacks do really, really great job. The actors do great jobs, doing these characters, because like that's again, look at how much Kate used to smile, and the yeah, Wells was more, you know, optimistic and less like kind of restrained and such. And yeah, I'm actually not sure I have that much to add about Cisco, but I definitely did feel like it is at least slightly different of a performance. And the fact that he had to lock the thing, because otherwise it would have been so much worse, and that is sometimes part of science. You have to, it's trolley problem kind of thing. It, takes a lot. I wouldn't be able to do it. Takes a lot to be within science in especially on like high levels like that. And I might not think the following: if A, it wasn't comic book media, and B, I wasn't trying to figure out what his deal is, what his freaking deal is, but Dr. Wells says, "It feels like I've been waiting for centuries for this." Feels like? Or is actually? Because I don't know. Yeah. I really appreciate the mystery surrounding him. I can hardly wait to see what exactly and in this one, one of the flashbacks shows that he saw Barry get hit by lightning, and he says, "See you soon, Barry." So this is not news to him. He knew that this is, yeah. Which I appreciate, we already knew that he could see the future through the machine thing, but even so, like yeah. Um, I guess that covers yeah, so there's the bit where Barry catches up to Mist in the mall, and yeah, Mist is like, "I'll take you out, but for now I only have this other person." And yeah, it's that thing of like, I mean, Barry is no closer to be, and that's the one time that Mist uses, he attacks someone in Barry is the one person that he attacks, even when Barry is not in a closed environment, and it's because he's just trying to get Barry off his back. He's not on the list. But yeah, Barry is not anything resembling immune to the mist. His lungs are, still susceptible to this sort of thing. So yeah, that was a really, really cool. And this thing of like how he tries to punch and then it just goes through and then mist, hits him back. Like, I have my issues with the third Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, but the comic book physics of Sandman was something I thought really worked. And here we have it, but just with mist instead. Fantastic. And I think that does... Yeah, and yeah, so he does manage to get back, and he points out, can't breathe. And yeah, the show, very briefly, turns into ER DC. That was yeah, and I need 50 cc's of comic book science stat. And it's not even that big of a needle. You probably won't feel it. You're gonna feel this. And yeah, they can't give painkiller because his metabolism is just gonna burn through it immediately. Like, yeah. And I guess that does bring us to the yeah, ultimately he gets the antidote, which, she says, hopefully you won't have to use it, and he uses it on Joe, which means he doesn't have anything for himself when, yeah. And that's also such a cool idea. Like, yeah. I mean, once they know what the gas is, I don't see why you couldn't hypothetically make a needle that, like, reverses the effects of that kind of thing, because it is just a physiological thing, I mean, it's not like if it was an alien thing, I'd be like, could someone really reverse engineer something, with like where it's alien technology and such? But no, this is the gas they use in the gas chamber, at least. I don't actually know if it is, it's not important if it is in reality or if it's just for the show. But yeah, once you know the gas, like, a scientist would be able to know what to do to counteract, because that's, everything, every substance in on Earth, there is some kind of thing that can affect, think of it as like they are throwing salt on the ice of the gas, and I guess that does pretty much, yeah, the thing about how, yeah, and also as soon as they said arresting officer, I knew it had to be Joe. So I appreciate that they didn't take forever to reveal it. And I wasn't thinking about it before that point. Once they talked about, because they get there real quick after talking about, like, oh, this person was like the judge in the, and yeah. So Iron Heights, Mist very easily gets in. And we're also told, oh, Barry, he's known how to get in there since he was 11. I guess, did his stepdad lock him in a room, so he had to learn how to... I think that's enough that if you know, you know. And if you don't, I really don't want to spoil, even if I did think that was a very silly twist in a show I otherwise love. But I don't want to give it away. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Henry thinking, well, you think I killed my wife in front of her son, so, or our son, but then Joe saying, I know you didn't, and it's just so sweet. And the thing about, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. It's okay. You believed in my son. That was enough. I mean, when this episode first aired, did they just like go door to door and pass out free handkerchiefs? Because like there's so much emotion in this episode, and I absolutely love it. I really appreciate when shows are just willing to really go for that kind of thing, because these are necessary emotions. It is like we're dealing with forgiveness and grief and empathy, and these are such important issues to, we have to normalize and promote these. And, yeah, a TV PG show that I'm sure a bunch of kids wanted to watch, and probably a number of them were able to, and for them to have that is great. But yeah, and Mist starts attacking, and Flash gets there just in time to save Joe. And he, vibrates his face so that his father won't recognize. And then, he can't just fight Mist. And then the point about, Dr. Wells, Wells is like, gas is the least stable substance on the planet. And that is true. Like, I took enough biology, or was it chemistry? See, someone who aced those classes would know the difference. But yeah, it is true. And it's also kind of like, well, yeah, of course it is. Like, even if you didn't know, of course it is. Like, it's air. It can't possibly be as substantial as liquid or solid, And yeah, he is running so that Mist can't quite catch up to him, and then is able to put him in the cell, which I promise I'm not gonna like spoil it for myself or something, but I can't help but wonder if they really are gonna put a bunch of metahumans in cells near each other, if there's gonna be an episode or more where at least some of them get out and form a team because they have the Flash in common, because that's the kind of thing that happens in comic books, so yeah, I guess we're never getting at least not a good Sinister Six movie, which is too bad because I do think that could work, but Sony just don't really know what they're doing with the less Spider-Man movies. I will say, I do think, I'm not sure I'm going to get to it anytime soon, but Spider-Man Noir, that looks interesting. I think it was Nando V Movies who did a video talking about, yeah, I thought he did really great analysis. Or was it FilmSpeak? Maybe it was both of them. And I think that brings us to the... So yeah, they managed to get him in there, and he's trying to use his powers to escape, because up until recently that seemed to work. But yeah, the science made just enough sense for that to yeah. And the yeah, I really like Joe. Like, so, by the end of the scene we realize he knew. So when he says, "You two arrived at the same time, did you?" Like, he's toying with them. He's just messing with them at this point. But I did really appreciate, Iris comes out and tells him, which I'm also really glad they did this early. They were together in the first episode. So it's really just been like, yeah, these few episodes before that is, revealed. And then, he points out it's complicated, and, I don't like that. And yeah, he does indeed threaten. Iris didn't say he would threaten. She said he would go through with it, but yeah, she wasn't far off. And yeah, Eddie saying, "I'll be outside looking into witness protection." And Right. I also like the thing about how, normally Barry would take a long time to get back to, so the superior officer is like, with you, that could be days, and so Barry runs around to get the stuff and then hands it to him, and then he gets yelled at for having a messy office. Because of course he does. Like, he's just been running around. He could, yeah. Also really appreciate, it's a subtle thing, but it's the kind of thing, it doesn't cost a huge amount of money, but it really adds to it. I really appreciate the way that stuff will blow in the air, because it's easy. They have a fan off camera, but when Barry runs off, I think I especially noticed it when he runs, when Caitlin, they're both in the lab. Yeah, his, or is it his office? Whatever. In the police station, and he runs off, and we see her hair blow back a little bit, and yeah, it just really adds, because that's the kind of thing that would, you could just look at how, the air behaves close to stuff that does move really fast in real life. And I think that does cover everything. I appreciated them mentioning it's going to be weird to work on top of a makeshift prison. And yeah, I think that covers everything in the episode. But yeah, missed. I don't think I read any of the comics that he appeared in, but very cool concept. And the yeah, they at one point in the episode they describe it as, someone, yeah, like this is someone who has this, yeah, really, really dangerous gas that they release. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, in real life, I would also not want to be around someone in an elevator who couldn't control their deadly gas. That's a fart joke.